I watched my wife drain our savings account the day after we buried our son, and I didn't say a word. Not because I was weak, not because I didn't notice, but because grief does something strange to a man. It sharpens you in ways people don't expect. While Claire thought I was drowning in sorrow, I was watching, calculating, waiting. My grandson found me 3 weeks later, standing in the nursery my son had painted for his daughter, my great-granddaughter, I'd never meet. The walls were still butter yellow, the crib still wrapped in plastic. "Grandpa," he said, voice cracking, "we need to talk about Grandma." That's when I knew I wasn't the only one who'd seen the monster wearing my wife's face. Before I continue, you need to subscribe to Deserved Revenge, because what I'm about to reveal will shock you. Hit that subscribe button now. My son died on a Tuesday. Heart attack at 42 while coaching Little League. One minute he was showing a kid how to grip a fastball, the next he was on the ground, clutching his chest, eyes wide with confusion. By Wednesday afternoon, Claire had already called the bank. I know because I checked our joint account Thursday morning and found $63,000 missing. $63,000 we'd saved over 30 years of careful living. Money we'd promised would go toward his daughter's college fund. The daughter his wife carried, 8 months pregnant, weeping at his funeral while my wife smiled at the mourners and accepted their casseroles like she was collecting trophies. I didn't confront Claire. I made coffee instead, watching her through the kitchen window as she sat in our garden, scrolling through her phone with the kind of focus that makes your stomach turn. Her thumbs moved fast. Excited. I could see her reflection in the glass door. She was smiling. The funeral had been small. My son wanted it that way, always hated crowds and attention. His wife Rebecca sat in the front row, hand on her swollen belly, surrounded by his coaching friends and their families. Young men with red eyes and trembling voices who'd looked up to him. Claire sat beside me, black dress pressed sharp, appropriate tears at appropriate moments, but I felt her leg bouncing under the pew. Restless, impatient, like she had somewhere better to be. During the eulogy, she checked her watch twice. I counted. When Rebecca broke down describing how my son had been planning the nursery the night before he died, how he'd stayed up until 2 a.m. painting those yellow walls, Claire squeezed my hand. To anyone watching, it looked like comfort, solidarity in grief. But her nails dug in just a little too hard. A warning. Don't you dare fall apart on me. I'd been married to this woman for 47 years, and in that moment, I realized I didn't know her at all. Or maybe I'd always known. And grief just burned away the lies I'd been telling myself. The reception was held at our house. Claire had insisted, said it would be easier, more intimate. She moved through the rooms like a hostess at a cocktail party, refilling drinks, directing people to the food, laughing softly at old stories about my son. I stood in the corner of the living room, watching her perform. That's what it was, a performance. Every gesture calculated, every smile timed perfectly. When Rebecca's mother asked if she needed anything, Claire touched her arm and said, "We're all family here. We take care of each other." I wanted to vomit. After everyone left, Claire kicked off her heels and poured herself a large glass of wine. "Well, that's done," she said, like we'd just survived a tedious dinner party. Not buried our only child. I stared at her from across the kitchen island. "What did you say?" She looked up, surprised. "I just meant the funeral. It's over. We can start to heal now." Her voice was syrupy, practiced. I nodded slowly and turned away before she could see my face. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about my son's last words to me. We'd talked on the phone the morning he died. He'd called to tell me about a bench he was building for the nursery. "I want her to have something I made with my own hands," he'd said. "Something that lasts." I told him I was proud of him, that he was going to be an amazing father. He'd laughed and said, "I learned from the best, Dad." 3 hours later, he was dead. I lay in bed next to Claire, listening to her breathe. Deep, steady, peaceful. Like nothing had changed. Like our world hadn't just collapsed. I got up quietly and went to my son's old room, the one we'd kept exactly as he'd left it when he moved out at 23. Baseball trophies on the shelves, Posters of players I didn't recognize on the walls. A desk covered in old notebooks and sketches. I sat at that desk and opened the drawer. Inside was a letter, sealed, with my name on it. My hands shook as I opened it. "Dad," it read, "if you're reading this, something happened to me. I don't know what, but I wanted you to know some things. First, I love you. You taught me everything that matters. How to be honest, how to work hard, how to show up for people. Second, watch Mom. I know that sounds crazy, but I've noticed things. The way she talks about money, the way she gets when you mention retirement or the future. She's always asking about accounts, about how much we have saved. I don't trust it. I don't trust her. I'm sorry to put this on you, but if something happens to me, make sure Rebecca and the baby are taken care of. Don't let Mom near the money. Please. I love you. Your son." The letter was dated 6 months ago. I read it 3 times, and with each pass, the words cut deeper. My son had known. He'd seen what I'd been too blind or too loyal to see. And he tried to protect me from beyond the grave. My grandson Ethan showed up unannounced on a Saturday morning, 3 weeks after the funeral. 23 years old, my son's boy from his first marriage, studying law at State. Sharp kid. Serious eyes. He found me in the garage, sorting through my son's old baseball equipment. Gloves that still smelled like leather oil. Bats he'd used in high school. A catcher's mask, with a dent from a foul tip that had nearly knocked him out. "Grandpa, I need you to look at something," Ethan said, pulling out his laptop. His hands shook as he opened a browser tab. Bank statements. Credit card bills. All in Claire's name. All opened in the last 3 weeks. She'd taken the $63,000 and split it across 4 new accounts I'd never heard of. Then she'd applied for 3 credit cards using our home as collateral. Total borrowed, another $40,000. "There's more," Ethan whispered, and his voice broke the same way my son's used to when he was scared as a boy. He showed me her phone records. He'd pulled them through some legal database his professor had access to. Hundreds of calls to a number in Costa Rica. The same number. Every single day for 6 months, starting long before my son died. I sat down hard on my son's old workbench, the one he'd built in high school shop class. The wood still smelled like him sawdust and Old Spice aftershave. My vision blurred. "Who is it?" I asked, voice barely above a whisper. Ethan pulled up a Facebook profile. A man named Javier, 51 years old, divorced twice, living in a beachfront condo in Tamarindo. His profile picture showed him on a yacht, tanned and grinning with 2 white teeth. In the comments under his most recent photo, posted 4 days after my son's funeral, Claire had written, "Soon, mi amor. Just a little longer." My chest tightened, but not with sadness, with something colder, clearer, sharper. Do you think I was too forgiving here? Tell me in the comments what you would have done. Ethan was crying now, trying to hide it by pretending to study the laptop screen. Dad always said Grandma was difficult, but I thought she at least loved him, loved us. I put my hand on his shoulder and felt him shake. This boy had just lost his father, and now he was losing the illusion of family, too. That's when I made the decision. I didn't tell Ethan. Not yet. But I stood up, closed the laptop gently, and said, "I need you to do something for me, and you can't ask why. Not yet." He nodded, wiping his face with the back of his hand. I gave him a list. Get copies of every bank statement going back a year, every credit application, every phone record you can access legally. Find out when Claire bought her plane ticket, because I knew she had one. And I needed the name of her lawyer, because a woman doesn't move $100,000 without legal advice. Ethan left that night with purpose in his step, and I went inside to face my wife. Claire was in the living room, watching some home renovation show, feet tucked under her on the couch, sipping white wine from a glass too large. She looked up when I walked in. "You okay, honey?" she asked, voice sweet as poisoned honey. I smiled, walked over, kissed her forehead like I had 1,000 times before, told her I loved her, and I watched her face soften with relief, watched her shoulders drop, watched her believe she'd gotten away with it. She thought grief had made me blind. She thought sorrow had made me weak. But what she didn't know, what she couldn't possibly understand, was that while she'd been planning her escape to Costa Rica and her new life with Javier, I'd been planning something too. Something she'd never see coming until it was too late. Claire started packing on a Thursday afternoon, and she thought I didn't notice. I was sitting in my son's old recliner, the one that still had the impression of his body in the cushions, when I heard the zipper. That specific metallic sound of luggage being tested, wheels rolling experimentally across hardwood floors. She was in our bedroom, door half closed, humming something light and forgettable. Some pop song from the radio. I walked past slowly and glanced in through the gap. 2 large suitcases lay open on the bed like hungry mouths, summer clothes folded neatly inside. Swimsuits with tags still attached. A new wide-brimmed sun hat. Cream-colored, expensive-looking. Sandals I'd never seen before. She saw me in the doorway and didn't even flinch. Didn't scramble to close the suitcases or offer an explanation that made sense. "Just donating some old things," she said brightly. Smile practiced and empty. "Feels good to clear space. Make room for new memories." I nodded slowly and kept walking, my slippers shuffling against the floor like an old man who'd given up. In the kitchen, I poured myself coffee with hands that didn't shake anymore. Grief had made me steady in ways I didn't expect. She had no idea what that meant. Ethan called that night after Claire had gone to bed. I took the phone out to the back porch, where the crickets were loud enough to cover my voice. He'd gotten everything I'd asked for. Bank transfers showing the systematic draining of our accounts. Credit applications with signatures that looked like mine but weren't. I could tell by the way the W in my name looped too wide. Phone logs showing daily contact with Javier going back 8 months. And the plane ticket, one way to San Jose, Costa Rica. Departure date, 11 days out. She'd booked it 5 days after the funeral, same day she'd opened the first new account. "There's something else, Grandpa," Ethan said, his voice tight with anger he was trying to control. "I found an email. She sent it to Javier 3 weeks before Dad died." He paused, and I heard him take a shaky breath. "Do you want me to read it?" I gripped the phone harder. "Yes," his voice cracked as he read. "Once the old man's out of the picture, we're free. He's 72 and has a heart condition he doesn't even know about. I've been switching his blood pressure medication with placebos for 2 months. Nature will take its course soon enough." I closed my eyes. My son wasn't even cold in the ground yet when she wrote that. But the old man didn't mean my son. It meant me. She'd been waiting for me to die. My son's sudden death had just accelerated her timeline. "If you're still with me, you won't believe what happens next. Drop a comment below with your country so I know you're here." I asked Ethan to send me everything, encrypted, to an email address she didn't know I had. Then I told him to sit tight and trust me. "What are you going to do?" he asked, and I could hear the fear underneath his anger. Fear that I'd confront her, that I'd tip our hand too early, that she'd run before we could stop her. I looked through the kitchen window at Claire's silhouette in our bedroom. She was on her phone, texting someone, smiling at the screen with an expression I hadn't seen her give me in years. "I'm going to let her think she won," I said quietly. "I'm going to let her believe I'm exactly the broken old fool she thinks I am. And then I'm going to take everything." Ethan was quiet for a long moment. Then, soft, but fierce. "Dad would have wanted you to fight." "I know, son. I know." The next morning, I played the part perfectly. I shuffled around the house in my bathrobe until noon. Left dirty dishes in the sink. Forgot to shave for 3 days running. Let the newspaper pile up on the front porch. I stared at the TV, without really watching, letting my face go slack and empty. Claire watched me with thinly veiled impatience, like she was observing a science experiment that was taking too long to conclude. "Maybe you should see someone," she suggested over breakfast on Saturday, her voice dripping with false concern. "A therapist, a grief counselor, someone to help you process all this." I looked up at her with watery eyes, not hard to manufacture when I thought about what she'd done, and nodded slowly. You're probably right. I can't seem to find the energy for anything. She reached across the table and squeezed my hand, and I had to force myself not to pull away. I just want you to be okay, she said. Liar. She wanted me docile, distracted, medicated if possible, out of her way so she could finish looting our life together. That afternoon, while Claire was out getting her nails done, I'd overheard her make the appointment. I drove to a lawyer's office 2 towns over. Not our family lawyer. Bernard, who'd known us for 20 years. Claire would have heard about that within hours. This was a bulldog named Patricia Hendricks, 56 years old, reputation for being sharp as a scalpel and twice as precise. Ethan had found her through his professors. She specialized in elder financial abuse and fraud. Her office was small, but immaculate. Law books lining every wall, diplomas from impressive schools. I walked in with a folder 3 inches thick, bank records, emails Ethan had recovered, phone logs, the plane ticket confirmation, my son's letter warning me about his mother. Patricia read through everything in complete silence, her jaw tightening with every page she turned. The only sound was paper rustling and the tick of an old clock on her desk. She's been planning this for months, Patricia said finally, looking up at me with eyes that had seen too many cases like this. Possibly years. This wasn't impulsive. This was calculated. I nodded, not trusting my voice. Patricia leaned back in her leather chair, fingers steepled under her chin. What do you want, Mr. Brennan? And be specific, because what we do next depends entirely on your answer. I met her eyes and didn't look away. I want her to walk into a room thinking she's untouchable. I want her to believe she's gotten away with it completely, that she's outsmarted everyone. And then I want the floor to drop out from under her so fast she doesn't have time to catch herself. Patricia smiled, and it wasn't warm. It was the smile of a predator recognizing another predator. I can do that, and I'll enjoy it. We spent the next 3 hours building the case brick by brick. Fraud, theft, exploitation of a surviving spouse during a period of extreme emotional distress. Patricia explained that because the money had been joint marital assets, and because Claire had transferred it without my knowledge or consent during the immediate aftermath of our son's death, we had grounds for criminal charges, not just civil recovery. She won't just lose the money, Patricia said, making notes in precise handwriting. She'll lose everything. The house, her freedom, her reputation. And if we play this exactly right, we can make sure Javier goes down with her. She looked up. He's been receiving stolen funds. That makes him an accessory. Costa Rica has an extradition treaty with the U.S. for financial crimes. I felt something loosen in my chest. Not relief, exactly, but rightness. Like puzzle pieces finally clicking into place. How long until we move? I asked. Patricia checked her calendar. Her flight leaves in 11 days. We file everything the morning she's scheduled to depart. The accounts freeze immediately. She'll land in Costa Rica thinking she's free, try to access the money to start her new life, and find nothing. Then we have her exactly where we want her, panicked, exposed, and trapped in a foreign country with no resources. I nodded slowly. And when she tries to come back? Patricia's smile widened. That's when it gets interesting. I left that office feeling lighter than I had in weeks. Not happy. You don't get happy when your wife of 47 years turns out to be a calculating stranger. But clear. Focused. Like I'd been wandering in fog and suddenly the sun burned through. I stopped at my son's grave on the way home. The cemetery was quiet, just wind moving through the old oaks. The headstone was simple granite. Just his name, his dates, and the words beloved, father, son, coach. I knelt down slowly, my knees weren't what they used to be, and traced the letters with my fingers. The stone was cold, permanent. I'm going to make this right, I whispered. She won't get away with what she did, what she tried to do. I promise you that. The wind picked up suddenly, rustling the leaves overhead, and for just a second I swore I heard my son's voice, that deep, steady tone he used when he was proud of me, when I'd done something right. Good dad. Finish it. Make her pay. I drove home carefully, obeying every speed limit, signaling every turn. Claire was on the couch again when I walked in, scrolling through her phone, glass of wine balanced on her knee. She looked up with that practiced expression of concern. "Where were you?" I was getting worried. I held up a small bag from the hardware store I'd stopped at on the way back, just picking up some things, thinking I'll finally fix that deck railing like I've been promising. Her whole face changed, relaxed, relieved, like I'd just confirmed I was exactly the harmless old fool she needed me to be. "That's great, honey. Really great. It's good to have projects. Keeps your mind occupied." She had no idea that 3 hours ago I'd signed the papers that would destroy her entire future, that every smile, every lie, every stolen dollar was about to come crashing down on her head. I sat down in my recliner, picked up the remote, and turned on a baseball game. Just an old man watching TV. Nothing to worry about. Nothing to fear. And I waited. Claire's lawyer called me on a Wednesday morning while she was at her book club. I didn't recognize the number, but I answered anyway, my voice carefully uncertain. "Hello?" A man's voice, smooth and practiced. The kind that's used to convincing people to sign things they shouldn't. "Mr. Brennan, my name is Todd Vescor. I represent your wife in some ongoing financial planning matters. She wanted me to reach out about signing a few documents to protect your assets during this difficult time. Financial planning. That's what he called theft." I let silence hang on the line for a moment, playing the confused old man. "What kind of documents?" He danced around it with impressive skill, something about updating our estate, making sure assets were protected in case of cognitive decline, ensuring Claire would be taken care of if something happened to me. Translation: she wanted me to sign away my rights to the house, to the remaining accounts, to anything she hadn't already stolen or borrowed against. "I'll need to review them with my own lawyer," I said, letting my voice shake just slightly. There was a pause. He hadn't expected that. "Of course," he said slowly, recalibrating. "That's very prudent. Just have them contact my office and we'll coordinate." I hung up and immediately called Patricia. "She's escalating," I said. Patricia actually laughed. "Good. Let her. The more she does now, the worse it looks in court. Let her bury herself." That night, Claire brought it up over dinner. She'd made pot roast, my favorite, and the smell filled the kitchen with memories of better times. Times I wasn't sure had ever really existed. "Honey, Todd Vescor called me today," she said, cutting her meat into precise pieces. "He mentioned you wanted to review the estate documents with your own lawyer." She smiled, but her eyes were calculating, cold. I shrugged, pushing peas around my plate. "Just being cautious. You always said I should read the fine print before signing anything." She nodded, but I saw her fingers tighten around her fork, knuckles going white. "Of course. Smart. I didn't know you had a lawyer. When did you retain one?" I met her gaze, keeping my expression open and guileless. "After the funeral. My son always said, it's good to have someone in your corner, especially after loss." I used his name deliberately. William was smart about things like that. Her face softened immediately. She thought I was just a grieving father following his dead son's advice. She thought I was talking about protecting myself from the world, but I was talking about protecting myself from her. She reached across the table and squeezed my hand, and I had to use every ounce of control not to recoil. "You're absolutely right. William was so smart. He'd be proud of you for being careful." The lies came so easily to her, so naturally, like breathing. I squeezed back and watched relief flood her features, because predators relax when they think their prey is properly subdued. We finished dinner in relative silence, and she did the dishes while I pretended to doze in front of the TV. But I was watching her reflection in the darkened window. She was texting someone, Javier, obviously her face lit by the phone's glow, smiling that secret smile that made my stomach turn. After she went to bed, I sat in the kitchen with all the lights off and thought about 47 years of marriage. Where had it gone wrong? Had she always been this person, and I'd just refused to see it? Or had something changed her, twisted her into this stranger who could steal from her own family? I'd never know. And sitting there in the dark, I realized I didn't care anymore. Ethan came by again that weekend. We sat in the garage with the door closed, surrounded by my son's things that I still couldn't bring myself to pack away. The smell of old leather and motor oil. Tools hung neatly on pegboards. A workbench covered in half-finished projects my son would never complete. Ethan had brought more records. Claire had taken out a $50,000 loan against the house. Forged my signature on the application. Patricia already had a handwriting expert lined up to testify. "This is insane, Grandpa," Ethan said, his voice shaking with anger. "How is she not in jail already? We have all the evidence." I shook my head slowly. "Because we're not just putting her in jail, son. We're making sure she loses everything first. The money, the house, Javier, her dignity, her future, everything." I looked at him hard. "You understand? If we move too fast, she might get a plea deal, reduced sentence. She might keep some of the money. But if we let her take that final step, if we let her actually flee to Costa Rica with stolen funds, the charges multiply, the sentence gets longer, and she has no defense." Ethan looked at me for a long time, really looked at me, and I saw him realize something. "You've changed, Grandpa." I had. Grief does that. It burns away everything soft and unnecessary. What's left is either ashes or iron. I'd chosen iron. What would you have done if your own wife did this? Drop your answer below. Claire's plane ticket was now 6 days away. I could feel her anxiety rising like a fever. She was on the phone more often, always stepping outside or into the bedroom for privacy. Packing when she thought I was asleep or distracted. She'd started being sweeter to me, making my favorite meals, laughing at my old jokes, touching my arm when she passed. It was grotesque, a mockery of the marriage we'd once had. On Tuesday, she sat me down in the living room with tea and cookies arranged on the coffee table like we were having some kind of important discussion. "Honey, I've been thinking," she said, her voice soft and concerned. "Maybe I should take a little trip, just a week or two to clear my head. Grief has been so heavy, and I think some sunshine and distance might help me process everything." I nodded slowly, playing my part. "Where were you thinking?" She hesitated, like she was making it up on the spot. "Maybe somewhere warm. I've always wanted to see Costa Rica. The beaches, the wildlife." I let the silence stretch between us. Let her sweat. Let her wonder if I suspected anything. Then I smiled, sad and tired. "I think that's a wonderful idea. You deserve it. You've been so strong through all of this." The relief on her face was instantaneous and complete. She actually teared up, real tears or fake. I couldn't tell anymore and didn't care. She hugged me tight, and I smelled her perfume. Lavender. It used to comfort me. Now it smelled like lies. "Thank you for understanding," she whispered against my shoulder. "I'll only be gone 2 weeks. I'll call every day." More lies. She had a one-way ticket and a lover waiting. She'd never planned to come back. Not until she'd drained every last dollar and left me with nothing. She kissed my cheek and went upstairs humming, and I sat there in the living room feeling absolutely nothing. That night, I finalized everything with Patricia in a conference call that lasted 2 hours. We had the bank record showing systematic theft over months. The forged signatures, 3 different documents, all perfectly documented. The emails between Claire and Javier going back 8 months, 2 months before my son died, talking about their future together once they were free. Patricia had even gotten statements from neighbors who'd seen Claire with a man matching Javier's description at a hotel 30 miles away last month. She'd been sloppy, arrogant. She thought I was too old, too grief-stricken, too trusting to notice. Patricia laid out the timeline with military precision. The day Claire's plane is scheduled to leave, we file everything at 9 a.m. Fraud, theft, forgery, elder abuse. The accounts freeze immediately. The house goes into protective custody. A warrant is issued. She paused. She'll be flagged when she tries to leave the country, but we're going to let her through. We want her to land in Costa Rica. We want her to think she made it. I nodded, even though she couldn't see me. And then, Patricia's voice was hard, satisfied. Then she tries to access the money and finds nothing. She panics. She calls her lawyer, who tells her she's been charged. She tries to run, but Costa Rica freezes Javier's accounts too. He's receiving stolen property. She's trapped in a foreign country with no money, no resources, and no way out except to come home and face what she's done. I closed my eyes and pictured it. Claire, in Javier's condo, watching her carefully constructed plan collapse. The panic, the betrayal. She'd feel ironic, given what she'd done. The slow understanding that she'd lost everything. How long before she comes back, I asked. Could be days, could be weeks. Depends on how stubborn she is. But eventually, she'll have no choice. And when she lands at the airport, there will be officers waiting. I took a deep breath. Do it. File everything exactly as planned. That night, I barely slept. Not from anxiety, from anticipation. The kind you feel before something inevitable finally happens. I lay in bed next to Claire, probably for the last time, and listened to her breathe, deep and peaceful. She had no idea tomorrow would be the last normal day of her life. That in 6 days, everything she'd stolen and schemed for would turn to ash in her hands. The morning before she left, Claire was practically vibrating with excitement she could barely contain. She triple-checked her suitcases, confirmed her flight on her phone, made a list of last-minute things to pack. I watched her from the kitchen doorway, coffee cup in hand, and felt absolutely nothing. No anger, no sadness, just cold, patient certainty. "You're sure you'll be okay while I'm gone?" she asked, though her tone made it clear she didn't actually care. "I'll be fine," I said. "Ethan's coming by to check on me, and I've got projects to keep me busy." She kissed me goodbye, a brief, passionless peck, and I tasted nothing but lies. "I love you," she said. I looked her right in the eyes. "I know exactly what you are," I said quietly. She laughed, thinking I'd said, "I know exactly where you are," or some other harmless phrase. She wasn't really listening anymore. She was already gone, already in Costa Rica, already free, already safe, already living the life she'd murdered our marriage to get. But she wasn't any of those things. She just didn't know it yet. Claire left for the airport at dawn on a Friday morning, and I watched from the bedroom window as she loaded her suitcases into the trunk of the car she'd bought with stolen money. A sleek silver sedan, 2 months old, that she'd told me was a grief purchase to help her feel better. I stood behind the curtain in my bathrobe and watched her check her phone one last time, smile at whatever message Javier had sent, and slide into the driver's seat. She didn't look back at the house. Not once. Didn't pause to take in the home we'd built together over nearly 5 decades. Just started the engine, adjusted her sunglasses, and drove away like she was heading to the grocery store. I waited until she turned the corner and disappeared from view. Then I called Patricia. "She's gone," I said. Patricia's voice was calm and professional. "Good. Everything's filed. The freeze went active at 9:02 this morning. She'll find out when she tries to access the accounts in Costa Rica. I'd estimate sometime this evening. Our time." I sat down on the edge of the bed we'd shared for 47 years. The sheets still smelled like her perfume, lavender, and lies. "What happens next?" I asked, though Patricia had already walked me through the timeline a dozen times. She was patient with me anyway. Claire lands in San Jose around 2 p.m. local time. She goes through customs, meets Javier, probably with flowers and champagne, thinking they're celebrating. They go to his condo, she settles in. Then sometime this evening, she'll try to transfer money to finalize whatever life they've planned together. That's when the accounts will decline. Frozen. Grace. Inaccessible. I could picture it so clearly it almost felt like watching a movie. "She'll panic," I said. "She'll call the bank first," Patricia confirmed. "They'll tell her there's a legal hold due to ongoing fraud investigation. Then she'll call Todd Vescor. He's already been served with a criminal complaint. He'll tell her to come home immediately and surrender herself." I closed my eyes. "And if she doesn't?" Patricia's voice went hard. Then it becomes international flight from prosecution. The charges multiply. And we have an extradition treaty with Costa Rica for financial crimes. She can't hide there forever. I am reading and replying to every comment under this post, so don't hold back. Tell me what you're thinking right now. I spent that day in a strange state of suspended animation. I couldn't focus on anything, couldn't eat. I tried to watch television, but nothing registered. Ethan came by around noon and found me sitting in the living room, staring at nothing. "You okay, Grandpa?" he asked quietly. I nodded. "It's done. She's gone. The accounts are frozen. Now we wait." We sat together in silence for a while, and I was grateful he didn't try to fill it with empty reassurances. Around 3 p.m. my time, 6 p.m. in Costa Rica, my phone buzzed. A text from Claire. "Made it safe. The beach is beautiful. Miss you already." I stared at the message. She was still playing the part. Still maintaining the fiction that she was a grieving widow taking a healing vacation. Still lying, even though she thought she'd won. I didn't respond. An hour later, another text. "Honey, something's wrong with the bank app. Can you call them and ask what's going on?" My heart rate didn't even increase. I'd been waiting for this. I turned off my phone. By evening, my phone had 23 missed calls, 17 texts, all from Claire. I turned it back on and watched them load. A cascade of increasingly desperate messages. "Why aren't you answering? Call the bank now. Something's wrong with all the accounts. What did you do?" The last one made me smile. Not a happy smile, but the grim satisfaction of a trap snapping shut exactly as planned. I handed the phone to Ethan. He read through the messages, his young face aging with each one. "She knows," he said. I nodded. "Good." That night, Patricia called with an update. She tried to board a flight back this morning, Costa Rica time. Interpol flagged her at the airport. She's currently in custody pending extradition hearings. Turns out, Javier's got his own legal problems, fraud charges from 2 previous relationships. She really picked a winner. I leaned back in my chair and felt something loosen in my chest. Not relief, exactly, but completion. How long until she's back? Extradition process usually takes 72 hours, sometimes less with financial crimes. She'll be on U.S. soil by Monday, Tuesday at the latest. We'll have officers waiting at the gate. The weekend passed in a blur. I kept expecting to feel something: guilt, regret, even anger. But there was just emptiness, like I'd been carrying something heavy for so long that when I finally put it down, I didn't know what to do with my hands. Ethan stayed with me, sleeping in his father's old room, and I was grateful for the company even though we barely spoke. On Sunday, Rebecca came by with baby Caroline, 10 weeks old now, already outgrowing her newborn clothes. "I heard," Rebecca said quietly while Ethan took Caroline to see the garden. "Ethan told me what Claire did." "I'm so sorry." I shook my head. "Don't be sorry for me. Be sorry for her. She threw away everything that mattered for money and a man she barely knew. She's the one who lost." Rebecca's eyes filled with tears. "William would be proud of you. For standing up. For protecting yourself." I nodded, not trusting my voice. Would he be proud? Or would he be heartbroken that his parents' marriage had ended like this, in handcuffs and courtrooms? Patricia called Monday afternoon. She's back. Landed at JFK 2 hours ago. She was arrested at customs. Bail hearings tomorrow morning. I asked if I needed to be there. "Not unless you want to be. But you should know she's asking to see you. Says she needs to explain." I laughed. Actually laughed. No, whatever she has to say, she can save it for the judge. But Ethan went. He called me right after the hearing, his voice tight with controlled rage. "She cried, Grandpa." Stood in front of the judge. And cried. Said she was confused. That grief made her do it. That she just wanted to feel alive again after losing her son. He paused. The prosecutor showed the emails to Javier from before Dad died. Showed the plane ticket she'd booked days after the funeral. Showed the forged loan documents. The judge set bail at $250,000. I felt cold satisfaction settle in my bones. Can she make it? Ethan's laugh was bitter. With what? She drained everything. Javier's accounts are frozen. She's got nothing. She'll stay in jail until trial. The trial took 4 months to get to court. I didn't attend most of it. Didn't need to. Patricia handled everything with ruthless efficiency. The evidence was overwhelming. Forged signatures verified by 3 different handwriting experts. Bank records showing systematic theft over 6 months. Emails to Javier discussing their future together while my son was still alive. Phone records showing hundreds of calls. Testimony from neighbors who'd seen her with Javier at hotels. The prosecutor painted a picture of calculated, cold-blooded financial abuse of a grieving elderly spouse. Claire's lawyer tried to mount a defense. Argued she was a grieving mother who'd made poor decisions under emotional distress. But then the prosecutor introduced my son's letter, the one warning me about her. The one dated 6 months before he died. The courtroom went silent when it was read aloud. Here was a dead man, warning his father from beyond the grave about the woman who claimed to have loved him. The jury deliberated for 3 hours. When they came back, the forewoman stood and read the verdict. Guilty on all counts. Fraud, theft, forgery, elder financial abuse. I wasn't there, but Ethan was. He called me immediately, his voice shaking. "It's over, Grandpa. She got 6 years. Javier got 8. I sat in my kitchen and looked out at the garden Claire used to tend. Okay, I said quietly. Okay. The sentencing hearing was 2 weeks later. This time, I went. I sat in the back row of the courtroom and watched Claire shuffle in wearing an orange jumpsuit, hands cuffed in front of her. She'd lost weight. Her hair had gone gray at the roots. She looked old in a way she never had before. The judge asked if she had anything to say before sentencing. She stood slowly and turned to look at me. Our eyes met across the courtroom. "I'm sorry," she said, and her voice broke. "I'm so sorry. I don't know what happened to me. I loved you. I loved our son. I got lost." The judge cut her off. "Mrs. Brennan, you didn't get lost. You made deliberate choices over a period of months to defraud and exploit your husband during the worst period of his life. You forged documents. You stole nearly $200,000. You planned to flee the country. These aren't the actions of someone who's lost. These are the actions of someone who knows exactly what they're doing." The gavel came down. 6 years in a federal facility. Restitution of all stolen funds. Permanent restraining order. I walked out before they led her away. I didn't need to see that part. The house felt different after the trial. Quieter, but not in a lonely way. In a way that felt clean, like a wound finally starting to close after months of infection. I started going through Claire's things methodically, clothes still hanging in her closet, books on her nightstand, jewelry in drawers she'd thought were secret, most of it I donated to charity. Let someone else get use out of things she'd bought with stolen money. But I kept one item, our wedding photo. Claire at 23, me at 25, both of us impossibly young, and smiling like we knew secrets the rest of the world hadn't figured out yet. Maybe we were happy once. Maybe that version of us had actually existed. I put the photo in a box in the attic. Not to remember her, but to remember who I used to be, before I learned that love could be a weapon. The man who trusted too easily, who ignored red flags because marriage was supposed to be forever. I wasn't that man anymore. Grief and betrayal had burned him away. Rebecca came by one afternoon in late spring with Caroline, who was 4 months old now and starting to smile at everything. "I wanted you to have this," Rebecca said, handing me a wooden box I recognized immediately. My son had made it in high school, intricate dovetail joints he'd spent weeks perfecting. Inside were letters, dozens of them, all addressed to Caroline in my son's handwriting. He wrote one for every birthday until she turns 18, Rebecca explained, her voice thick, and one for her wedding day, one for her college graduation, one for when she has her first heartbreak. I held the box carefully, feeling the weight of my son's love contained in wood and paper. "He knew," I said quietly. Somehow, he knew he wouldn't be here. Rebecca nodded, tears streaming down her face. "He told me the night before he died that if anything happened, I should make sure you and Caroline knew each other. that you'd need each other." She looked at me intently. He was right. I started spending more time with Rebecca and Caroline after that. Went over once a week for dinner. Watched Caroline grow and change. Saw my son in her expressions, the way she furrowed her little brow when she was concentrating, the way she smiled with her whole face. Rebecca was doing an amazing job raising her alone, but she welcomed my help. Let me babysit sometimes while she went to the grief support group she joined. Let me tell Caroline stories about her father when she got old enough to understand. We became family in a new way. Not the family I'd planned, but the family my son would have wanted. Before I wrap this up, I need to ask, are you subscribed yet? Because the next story I'm working on will shake you to your core, and I don't want you to miss it. Hit that subscribe button now. Ethan graduated law school that spring, top 15% of his class. He got a job at a firm specializing in elder law and financial abuse cases. "Because of you, Grandpa," he told me at his graduation party held in Rebecca's backyard, "you showed me what fighting back looks like. What justice looks like when you don't give up." I hugged him hard, this young man who'd lost his father but found his purpose. "Your dad would be so incredibly proud of you," I said. "Not just of what you accomplished, but of who you are." Ethan's eyes filled with tears. "I know. I feel him sometimes, like he's still here, watching." I nodded. I felt it too. In the smell of sawdust when I opened the garage, in the weight of Caroline in my arms, in the way morning light hit the garden my son used to play in as a boy. He wasn't gone. Not really. He lived in every good choice we made, every act of love, every refusal to let cruelty win. I visited Claire once. Just once. 6 months into her sentence. I didn't tell anyone I was going. Not Ethan, not Rebecca, not Patricia. I just drove up to the Women's Correctional Facility 2 hours north on a cold Tuesday morning when I knew the roads would be clear. I signed in, went through security, and sat in a visiting room that smelled like industrial cleaner and despair. She walked in wearing prison blues, hair pulled back in a ponytail, no makeup. She looked smaller, somehow, diminished. She sat down across from me at the metal table, and for a long time neither of us spoke. Finally, she said, "Why are you here?" Her voice was different, flatter, like something essential had been scooped out. I'd been asking myself that same question for the entire drive. Maybe I needed to see her like this. Needed concrete proof that justice was real, that actions had consequences. Or maybe I just needed to say goodbye to the woman I thought I'd married. "I don't know," I said honestly. She looked down at her hands, fingers twisted together on the tabletop. "I'm sorry. About William. About the money. About all of it." The words came out mechanical, rehearsed, like she'd practiced them with her lawyer or therapist. I wanted to believe her. Some small part of me that remembered 47 years of marriage wanted desperately to believe she felt genuine remorse. But sorry doesn't unforge signatures, doesn't return stolen money or stolen time, doesn't bring back the trust that's been shattered into pieces too small to ever reassemble. "I know you are," I said, and I meant it. I did believe she was sorry she'd been caught, sorry she was in prison, sorry her plan had failed. Just not sorry for what she'd actually done. We sat in silence for another minute. Then I stood up. "Goodbye, Claire." She looked up sharply. "That's it? That's all you came to say?" I met her eyes one last time. "What else is there? You made your choices. Now, you live with them, just like I have to live with mine." I walked out of that visiting room and didn't look back. Never went back. Some chapters need to close completely. Life moved forward the way it always does, when you let it. Slowly at first. Then, gathering momentum. I sold the house eventually. Too many ghosts, too many memories that turned sour when I examined them too closely. Bought a smaller place near Rebecca and Caroline. A little ranch with a workshop in the back where I could build things. I started volunteering at the Little League where my son used to coach. Taught kids how to throw a curveball without hurting their arms. How to slide into bases without tearing up their knees. How to lose with grace and win with humility. The kids called me Coach Bill. And some afternoons I'd look up and swear I saw my son standing at the edge of the field, hands in his pockets, smiling at me the way he used to when he was proud. On Caroline's first birthday, we all gathered in Rebecca's backyard. Ethan and his girlfriend. Some of my son's old coaching buddies. Rebecca's parents. We sang happy birthday while Caroline smashed cake all over her face with pure toddler joy. And for a moment, brief but real, I felt something I hadn't felt in over a year. Peace. Not happiness yet. That would come later. But peace. The kind that settles in your bones when you fought for what matters and won. I learned something profound through all of this. Betrayal doesn't just take things from you: money, trust, years of your life. It teaches you what you're really made of underneath the comfortable illusions. It shows you who stands with you when the floor drops out. It forces you to decide. Will you let cruelty define you and make you bitter? Or will you define yourself by how you fight back? I chose to fight. Not with rage or blind revenge, but with clarity, with patience, with the kind of cold, calculated justice that makes sure the people you love are protected and the people who tried to hurt you face real consequences. Claire thought she'd won. She thought grief had made me weak and pliable, easy to steal from, easy to abandon. But grief made me sharp. It burned away all the soft parts that had let me ignore warning signs for years. And in the end, that sharpness cut through every lie she'd ever told, every document she'd forged, every dollar she'd stolen. She lost everything: her freedom, her money, her future, her dignity. While I lost a marriage that turned out to be built on sand. But I gained something too. I gained clarity about who I am when everything's stripped away. I gained a closer relationship with my grandson and my son's family. I gained the knowledge that I could be betrayed by the person I trusted most and still come out the other side standing. If there's a lesson here, and I think there is, it's this: never underestimate a person with nothing left to lose except their integrity. Because that's the one thing you can't steal, can't forge, can't drain from an account in the middle of the night. And it's the one thing that will absolutely destroy you when you try. Claire learned that lesson in an orange jumpsuit in a federal prison. She had 6 years to think about it, to understand that the man she'd dismissed as a broken old fool was actually made of something harder than she'd imagined. I think about my son sometimes, about the letter he left warning me, about how he knew his mother better than I did, about the nursery he painted and the daughter he never got to meet. And I make him a promise every time that I'll be there for Caroline, that I'll teach her about her father, that I'll make sure she knows she comes from good people even if one of them lost her way so completely there was no road back. That's my job now. Not revenge. Not bitterness. Just being present, being steady, being the grandfather my son trusted me to be. And some days, when I'm working in my shop, or watching Caroline play in Rebecca's yard, or teaching some kid at the ball field how to grip a fastball, I feel my son's presence, not haunting, supporting, approving. And I know whatever else I lost, whatever else got stolen or destroyed, I did the right thing. I fought back, I protected what mattered, and I won.